Chained Echoes poses itself as a love letter to the RPGs of the 16-bit era, but does it stand up to the greats of the time it's trying to replicate? Let's jump in and find out. The story in Chained Echoes starts off with an event that changes the course of the ongoing wars between three main kingdoms that make up the continent of Landis. This event leads to a cease war and a large celebration that follows. It is during this celebration that you meet and learn about a good chunk of your party. The game actually does a very impressive job of introducing each of them and leading to the events that eventually bring them together and kick off their adventure. The story does start very standard fare, but I was actually surprised at how it changed it up and took it to places and events I was not expecting at all. Stories in an RPG are really important, and its beats really helped push me forward, wondering what would happen next. I felt the flow was great, and it did not overstay its welcome, and it really had no fear of getting dark when warranted. Outside the main story, they also did a really fantastic job of just world building in general. You learn a lot about the history of the world, events of the past that may or may not even have any relevance to the story at all. Continents even outside of Landis, and giant creatures known as these true kings. It's a world that feels lived in and could easily be expanded upon in many ways. All of the characters you meet or join the party have their own personal goals and agendas. Each of the party members felt unique from each other, and their personas in this story I felt matched well to their playstyle and combat. You have your typical trope character types, but even those you would think were just throwaway characters grew and evolved with the story, leading me to become even more fond of them as the story progressed. So I'm gonna start the gameplay section off with something that might seem trivial to some people, but when it comes to me and RPGs, it's pretty important overall, and that's movement. Movement in Chained Echoes is really swift, and I loved it. Your characters dart around, and for me that makes exploring the world 100 times more enjoyable. Of course, movement means nothing if there isn't anything to explore, and Chained Echoes provides. There are hidden areas to find, buried treasures to hunt down, and other events I can't really get into without reaching into spoiler territory. It is a lot to check out and rewards you for doing so, so the movement made it never feel daunting, and it led me to check out potential dead ends I probably would have avoided. Battles in Chained Echoes are not random. You see the enemies in the overworld and you transition right into the fight after stumbling upon them. You have your standard turn-based attack system, with the twist being that you have 4 characters to start the battle with, but then you can also pick 4 backup characters, one for each of the main party members. During a player's turn, you can swap between the two once and perform an action immediately after doing so. If a character is knocked out during the battle, it'll end up blocking their backup from being able to swap in until that character's revived. So there is some thought around who you want as your backups, or when to swap them in to make sure you're not accidentally blocking someone you might actually need in a pinch. Your party completely recovers between battles, which is really nice since there's no need to waste time topping people off as you continue your journey. But don't let that lead you to some false sense of security of thinking this game is easy. Battles in this game can shift on you quick if you're not paying attention. There's a large focus on using buffs and debuffs to get the advantage, and if you try to brute force your way through them, you're going to end up losing. Another unique part of the battle system in Chained Echoes is the battle gauge. Essentially, the way it works is that there are 3 zones, a normal part of the gauge that really does nothing, a green part which is kind of the sweet spot in providing better damage while also offering better damage mitigation, and then the red zone which just completely reverses the green zone. As you attack, the gauge will move from the left to the right, eventually entering the green zone, but then into the red zone. You can reverse its direction through different actions, and using certain skill types it will choose randomly. There is also a super gauge in the game. When filled, can have a character unleash a unique attack that can provide damage or support to the party. There is no experience system in this game, instead being replaced by a lot of different ways to customize your character. After beating a boss, you'll get a skill point for each character that you can spend on a variety of moves, passives, or stat buffs for your characters. You can also level up the skills after being obtained. Weapons and armors in the game can be upgraded as well, and there are crystals you find in the game with all sorts of different stats that you can combine and level up as well and socket into your weapons and armor. There's also a class system in the game. To obtain classes, you have to first find the monuments of them scattered across the land, and also have one of these one-time use items called Sacred Waters that are needed to activate the monument. You prove your worth through the battle and then receive the class of that monument. The classes add additional skills and buffs to your party members and can be changed out at any time. Eventually, you will also obtain Sky Armor, which are basically personalized mechs, which then offer a new way to traverse the world and also have their own battle system, gear, and skills. There's even more systems beyond this, but I don't want to get into spoiler territory, and also it's just fun to discover these things in a game as you play through it. The pixel art in Chained Echoes are top notch. Each area is unique and looks great. All the characters are also very unique looking and well designed. The sound effects do their job, but I really want to give a shout out to the music in Chained Echoes. It is really good, and tracks like The Peaceful Place would just have me sitting around doing nothing but listening to it. In fact, I'm sitting here listening to the soundtrack as I write the review. It's that good. The composer, Eddie Marianucro, sorry if I butchered your last name, has the entire soundtrack available, which I'll link to in the comments. Since launch, the developers have released a few updates. Version 1.2 brought about New Game Plus and a complete overhaul to the crystal system, which now instead of just getting random crystals from a crystal vein in the world, you can now pick from a list of 3 for each of the drops the vein would have produced. You can even opt out of getting one and just get money instead. The amount of money you get is weighted based on where you are in the story. You can even create chains by picking ones of the same property, which will increase the chances of that same type to appear again later. The devs have stated they're not done with the world of Blandis, but I'm not sure what extent that is, and they haven't really said when or what will come out of it. You can check out any digital game store and find a huge number of 16-bit style RPGs out there, but it's rare to find ones that really stick out like Chained Echoes. And I feel like Chained Echoes kind of came and went without much fanfare, and honestly I don't know why. It is even more odd to me in a post-Final Fantasy XVI world where people are complaining how Final Fantasy has lost its way. Chained Echoes is out there, it's just waiting for you to bring back all those classic JRPG feelings in a good way. I loved my time with Chained Echoes, and since starting it back up to get footage for this review and learning of the New Game Plus, I can easily see a second playthrough coming up in my future. I highly recommend it, and for me this is a must-buy if you love JRPGs. Have you played Chained Echoes? What did you like or maybe even dislike about it? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Please look forward to more videos from SwitchOver in the future.